morning.
Okay, good. Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
Morning.
Just noting we are live on Facebook now. As we look to get started, just want to welcome everyone tuning in to the Facebook Live platform. We're just now getting started.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Did anybody hear me?
Yes, Ellen, I can.
Hello?
Hi, Ellen. Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can't hear nothing. Can't hear nothing. Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you, Helen.
I can't hear you.
We can hear you, Helen.
I can't hear. I can't hear you.
Can anybody suggest what you can do?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Under an
I
email.
can't hear
tell her.
anybody.
Yeah, it looks like she's logged out. Hey, Council, we are looking to proceed. My apologies, I do have to have my video off. I'm just watching my bandwidth. It is quite low, so I'm pretty unstable. As we look to develop the agenda, the first item is the identification of media.
Victoria Gray for the Turtle Island News.
Thank you, Victoria. Any other media on the line? Don't see any. We'll move on to the next portion of the agenda. Changes, deletions, and adoptions of the agenda. Audrey.
I'll move to adopt. If there are no changes.
Can't hear.
Linda, moved by Audrey.
I'll second it, Melba.
Can't hear.
Seconded by Melba. Any additions, deletions to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none. Moving to the vote, all in favor?
Huber.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion's passed. Moving on to our delegation, we have a request for funds from Jordan's
Can
principal.
you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Helen.
What the hell is that? I can't hear nothing. Can't hear nothing.
And you can ask her to call in, Tammy.
Tammy, can you write in the chat, I agree with Audrey, for Helen to try
Can't hear you.
calling in? Because
I can't hear you.
Perhaps a host could, mute.
thanks, Wendy. Sorry about that. So Ruby, just apologies, but we will look to get started with your presentation. I see it's in the kits, and maybe you can just quickly introduce your guest as well. Turn it over to you, Ruby.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us on your agenda today. We really appreciate it because we've come to a time in our project now where we're ready to go really after funds for building this Gowanio school. As you recall, the design brief was accepted by ISC, and we're pretty much ready, except for a few adjustments, shovel ready to do this project. And I know that ISC had us on a priority list for about 21 or 22. But I imagine a lot of those projects aren't even begun yet and have all that to go through. And we've finished all of that. We have a business plan. We have everything that could back the request to go. And we're looking to see, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. I'll just introduce our people though first. Is Roxanne on? Roxanne? How about Alva?
Roxanne's on.
Okay,
Got a
is
thumbs up.
Alva on?
Morning,
Alva.
here.
Hi, Alva. And let's see, Rose. Is Rose on? Rose Miller? She
Hey,
said
Ruby,
she's,
I don't see Rose on.
don't see Rose. And Jim Woodruff, did he make it? He's got school kids too, and he's just trying to do everything. So it's hard work. Anyway, and our principal has a medical appointment this morning, so he sends his regrets. So, and there's a lot going on in all the families, so I apologize for not having all of the board here, but they're all here in spirit. And like I said, we're ready now to proceed to really go after funding for the school. And with the COVID happening, we really are going to have trouble accommodating space-wise for students, which will make it even harder for school to be carried on on a regular basis. So we appreciate you actually having in school till September. I wanted to say that to you guys for that decision. Going on though, I told you that we're pretty much ready now for shovel. So we'd like to ask different, or even look at different options with council to try and go forth for this money, because we really do feel it's the responsibility of us to build this school, having had the students in this kind of a learning environment for all these years. So it's really, and I think every entity in the community has spoken supportively about this school because it is preserving the cultural language and producing the speakers to go forth and keep us in line with the culture and the languages. So we did see in the paper that there were some considerable funds left from last year in the Jordan Principal funding that the community received. So we were wondering if one of the options could be to look at funding from there. It also said that there was going to be another, I think I read as I was doing research, another $1 million coming this year. So we're wondering if council could look to spare any of that to help us get started, even if we could. Anyway, we were thinking of asking for 5 million, but whatever it could be spared would be great. And then ask INAC for the other 11, because it's 16.5 million we need. And that briefing note you got talks about Jordan's Principle, how we think this project fits in that, because each of these children are going to school in an environment that doesn't provide them the full learning experience as it does other children. So we did research this, and it's from Valerie Gideon, and she's it was the affidavit that she put out April 15th, 2019, when there was a challenge on how they were dispersing funds and responding to the requests back then. And the ISC then made a commitment to really help each child that needs, and it would be the first whether it's provincial or federal, it would be the first one that's communicated would carry it through. We've been communicating with ISC. They know all about this. The capital has accepted our design brief. What they told us, there was no money. They always say that, and we know that, but like I say, these children been going to school in a less than comparable environment to other children. So she talks about, this is a long affidavit. I was reading it all, and she talks about how they have even gone back and the requests they received and handled them. There isn't anything they haven't addressed. But in the list of requests that were honored, I didn't see very much from our community. So why that is, I don't know. But anyway, I won't go into every detail on this briefing note. You have it. But our recommendation was that we request from council to approve a funding allocation. We're asking for 5 million from the Jordan Principal Community Funding Allocation to assist in the financing of the construction of the new school, which has been costed at 16.5, and also request 11.5 from ISC on this project. We need the council to help us here now, because this is political and so forth. So the capital folks have told us there's no money, and it's sitting on a shelf according to them, and then their priority list is so long. But as we said, we think it'll be, ours could be put forward because of that it is ready for shovel. I don't know if any of my colleagues would, Alva, you like to say something?
Ruby, all I can say is that I agree with what you're talking about, is to be able to find some money to help us, and also I also read the affidavit and seen that our school could fit a number of things there. So I want to say Nyawa for representing us, Ruby, and just to let the rest of you know, I'm in agreement with her, and I think it's definitely been a while coming, but we appreciate every help that we can get. So that's all I can say.
Is Rose on? Rose?
Don't see Rose on yet.
Not right. Okay, Jim, is Jim on? Okay, I guess it's just Alva and I, but it just the timing of the day, and there are a lot of things going on. So please, we're representing the school, and this is on behalf of the board and the faculty and so forth. So we would certainly like to have some thoughts from you on what you think of our request, and we would hope that it can be addressed. We're going to keep going and trying hard. There are other options we can consider, but we think ISC is the primary one to fund this school. So
Okay,
Nathan, thank you.
Thanks, Ruby. So I'm going to move us into the discussion for this, as Ruby has indicated. So is there any questions, comments, discussion based on the briefing note as well as the presentation?
It's Melba.
Go ahead, Melba.
Yeah, I just want to ask Ruby and Alva, how long this has been going on now? I know it says it 30 some years where children have been without a school, a home, that's appropriate for their needs. How long has it been now since you've been seeking funding as opposed to moving?
I would venture to say that they've been trying to do that from day one, and that would be somewhere around 33 years. Alva could correct me on that. She has the corporate knowledge on all of the development. So I would say that long, Melba, but for sure, no, it's times are changed, and like for example, the high school kids, they can't even join sports or anything, or we have to rent a space for them to have gym and so forth. So this sort of doesn't let a child develop physically, mentally, and socially, and so forth. Like Alva said, there's a lot of parts in this Jordan principle where it points out the measures that you can measure your effort by. So I would say they've been at it for a long time. I know I'm a Johnny come lately on this in terms of most of them, but I feel the same thing. I feel don't do something about preserving our language and culture through this school, then we're going to lose everything as a First Nation that wants to preserve our culture, language, and it's supposed to be fully supported by Canada. So this is, and I know that all of you support it because I saw that in your presentations for running for council. So we thank you for that. And now is the time for us all to work, see if we can work it, make it happen.
Nathan, it's Hazel.
Okay, thanks Melba and Ruby for that. I'm going to go over to Hazel. Go ahead, Hazel.
Yeah, okay. When we spoke with ISK, when they came down to Gowanio School, at first, before they were shovel ready, that was their terminology, that you had to be shovel ready. So it always seemed to me that that was a promise to once you're shovel ready, you get the funding. However, once they arrived at the spot of being shovel ready, then there was other things that came up. Well, no, you're this part on the list and there's no money. With the COVID, as Ruby has already mentioned, that really speaks to they have to do something to build an environment where all of those little kids are going to be in safety from now on, because that's the thing we all have to be concerned about, is our health and safety for the students. Not only that, when not comparing anyone, but I know we had the commission on and they spoke about people taking the language, etc. Well, the manner in which the children learn right from kindergarten right up to grade 12, they come out of there really ready, and they're speakers. There's a lot of them that already do the culture, the speaking, and do a lot of the feast now. There's many of them. I know them because some live in my area here. And I guess it's the same thing over and over. Like, we talk about it, we ask, and nothing happens. So I think they've been very patient. We have to all now be proactive to help them get that money to get that school, because right now our community is in severe distress by so many of our members passing away. And, you know, this COVID thing alone speaks to the heart of everything right now. And I think we should all be advocating on their behalf to help them get funding. Thank you.
Hey, it's Audrey.
Thanks for that, Hazel. I'm going to go to Audrey and then Wendy.
Yeah, I thoroughly support the project. Hazel and I have been working on the design team with them for the last couple of years now. And these students deserve to be in a school. They're in the top of an arena right now for the last few years. And it is not conducive to running a school because of the lack of water and basically the environment where they're at. And we do appreciate having that space right now for them, but we need to get them a school. So I feel strongly about the council also working with them to try and help get them some money in some way, shape, or form. So it's probably something that we need to discuss more and to find out where there are any leads that we can use, and we will probably have to use our political influence also to try and make this happen, because they are very, very deserving of a new school, because they really do carry on our language and our culture, and that's who we are as Haudenosaunee.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Audrey. Wendy?
I'm not going to repeat what was said. Ruby summarized it. We all support it. We've all talked to it before. What's on the table is a specific request for the $5 million to use Jordan's principle. And I'm certainly not prepared to make a motion on that today. I know we have the water issue that's also has a request in for Jordan's principle, and there's a number of requests against that money. And I mean, we have to look at that whole Jordan's principle issue, because we know that there are children in, individual families that can't access Jordan's principle, which is ridiculous. So all of this to say is, I think the question on the table is how we help Gowaneo, how we help them to get the funding. And, that's the discussion that I'd like to have. Audrey alluded to political support. I think coming up with a political strategy of how we can help with that. I don't know how much involvement the chief has had, or this is something that the boards have been doing on their own moving forward. But I think if we can iron out a strategy of how we can pressure this, because absolutely the children need a school. So I think that's not a question whatsoever, it's how, and that's a discussion I'd like to have.
Thanks for that, Wendy. Is there any more discussion? Sorry, is there any more discussion as we look to move this issue forward?
Nathan?
Nathan, it's Hazel.
Okay, I'll go to Ruby and then Hazel.
I would just please bring forth to not punt it down the road and leave it, because if we could actually do something in an active manner, this construction could start in April and onward and move it forward. It's been a long time waiting, and these families have been very, very patient. But because they love the language, the teachers have been very patient. There's some very, very educated folks there that are trying to preserve the language, and they stay there because they have that feeling for this community. This is us. That's why they have to stay and try and keep our language and culture alive. So we don't want to punt it down the road for ages. You guys have been with us all the way through. We've brought everything to you as it's ready, and it's ready now. So it's time to move. There are other options, but we started here because we think ISK has the obligation to help get a school for these children. And there's new and other schools everywhere around us. I saw that in the paper just lately. So I'm just begging you not to punt this down the road and leave it, and here we come back again and again and again. We need to make some decisions here and go forth with it, even to call ISK down and discuss it with them straight out. but
Thanks
we'd
for that.
appreciate some,
It's Melba.
Okay, were you done there, Ruby?
yes, I'll leave it there, Nathan, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ruby. So I have Hazel and then Melba.
Yes, I just would like to say with the suggestions at various ways to get funding, like their ask today is to get some of the Jordan's principal, and we all know that there's various areas that need help. So couldn't Gawaneo be one item on the Jordan's principal list to get some of their funding? And if council would even back a loan to give them some money and then tell ISK, okay, here, this is how they're starting because they got to move now. And we're expecting that they provide the rest of the funding to the total amount that they need to erect a school. So I don't know if that's an option. I know way back when in economic development, when they were developing the Iroquois Lodge, that building went up based on a loan through council. So this is no different than another building maybe being in the same position to be, to get a loan to help them along and then still communicate and go after ISK to support this because I don't know. I don't know what they need, ISK needs, but it seems like they're really good at telling everybody no all the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Hazel. Before I go to Melba, I'm hearing full support for the political work that we need to do going forward. What I'm going to do is just move us into the strategy piece, and maybe we start having discussions on how we can, get some immediate attention, as Ruby has indicated. One idea I'm thinking of is a smaller working group of counselors to work with the school and bring back that political strategy that Wendy talks about in a timely manner, so that we're not punting it down the road, where we're getting some immediate action coming out of this meeting, smaller working group, both political as well as the board of the school, and then bringing it back with all of those options for us to consider. So, but with that, I'm going to go to Melba and then Wendy.
Yeah, we do this quite often. We procrastinate and we don't make decisions on a lot of things, but I understand when a strategy is really important also. So I think this is a very important top of the line situation because we're talking of children. Children is our future. 7 generations. We talk of like that at times. Now we better make sure that we are genuine in really wanting to help our children immediately. Within the next 2 weeks, that we make a final decision on how we're going to move forward with helping Gawaneo have a home for these children once and for all. As it was mentioned, it's turning out a lot of speakers, and now they're in the longhouse. They're doing ceremonies. They're doing all of this, and that's what we're certainly about as Haudenosaunee people. It's all through the community now. So hopefully, your suggestion will bring some forward strategies that can really make a difference with Gawaneo. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Melba. So we do have that suggestion also to do the 2 weeks. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy.
Yeah, I mean, the only other point that I was going to raise is maybe we should be arranging a meeting with Ann Scott, and maybe that's a step 1 and a step 2 with Minister Miller, just to follow up on this. But I think the strategy is really important. On the table was Jordan's principle, not the loan capability. I'm certainly not opposed to that whatsoever, but I think we need to know what that looks like. What can we do a loan? What's their saturation point? All of those details, I think, need to be mapped out as well, and that could be part of a strategy. Maybe there are several options that we can lay out and put on the table of how we can do this. So I don't think the timing's an issue whatsoever either in doing that.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. So I'm hearing support for a smaller working group, put a time frame on it of about 2 weeks. And also I agree, line up and shoot for those meetings with Ann Scotton as step 1, and then step 2, the minister responsible.
Nathan?
Yeah, go ahead, Ruth.
Nathan?
Yeah.
We have met Ann Scott, and maybe she has a different perspective now, but she was there with her capital people, it seemed like, and that there's no money and nothing's happened. So I'm just wondering, I think it's protocol maybe to go to her first again and then on to the minister. And I know that if you recall, we did engage McColeman and his assistant in Ottawa, and they've sent a letter to Miller on behalf of the school, and their position is that we need that school. And they're waiting for an answer from Minister Miller. I just wanted to let you know that we just got that notice a few days ago.
Okay, thanks for that, Ruby. That is helpful in terms of the advocacy. I see Audrey.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Ruby if your group has approached HCC for some contributions towards your school, as well as I've worked for the last 2 years with you. So I would volunteer to continue working with you on this small working group, if you would like me to. Yeah.
Oh, appreciate your offer, Audrey, and thank you. Yes, we'd like you. The HDI, we have gone and made presentations to them as well, and their position was, let us know what money you need. They think we should try with ESC first, and whatever they can provide. If we needed more, they would try to help. But they at the time said they were short on money too. So I don't know how that is now. We haven't gone in the last little bit, but we know that that I think the Six Nation Elected Council is very strong, and we don't have to beg for this money. We really don't. You have the power to lead it forth, in my opinion. So I'm just asking you to pick it up and go with it. You'll see it'll make a big difference.
Totally.
I happen to know from my other life.
Totally agree with you, Ruby. So what I'm hearing is support for the 2-week time period, and luckily our next general finance meeting is in 2 weeks. So what I'm going to suggest is we put this back on the agenda. Let the small working group do their work for the next 2 weeks. Come up with that political strategy, options, and have it presented back. The only thing I'm going to see if there's any further counselors that want to volunteer to assist this for the next 2 weeks. So we have Audrey. I see
Nathan and
Sherry.
Hazel, I've sat on, so sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Hazel.
Yes, I've sat on there up until now, so I can continue as well.
Thank you for that, Hazel. And I saw Sherry Lynn, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how many you wanted, so I'm okay too.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so
Was
we have.
that Sherry Lynn? Oh,
Yep.
Was that Sherry? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd
so.
like to join too. It's Melba.
Okay, Melba. So we have 4.
As long as I can make the meetings. As long as I can make the meetings. I have
Okay.
3 meetings quite often, as the rest of you do. So if I can make the meetings, I certainly will. Thank you.
Okay, in my head, I don't know why, but I had 4 counselors, and 4 counselors volunteered. So it looks like we're good. So thank you, Hazel, Melba, Sherry, Lynn, and Audrey, and I see Audrey with her hands up.
Yes, I'd like to be able to ask Darren if he's on the line. I think our finance department is a crucial part in this because they know accessibility where there are funds. So if we could tie in with them too, I don't want to put you in this. Is Darren on the line right now?
Yep, Darren.
Yeah.
Darren, are you able to shed any light on this from the finance department of any options that you can think of right now, please?
Well, absolutely. But I think it's part of doing, we have a business plan. So it's a function of looking at the financing options around that. So I think there is a political strategy that needs to go first. And then we look at sort of the components of where the funds are coming from and the conditions around the funding. And then we can do some modeling, certainly. And I, that's something that we're there as a technical resource or backup to the political strategy. So.
Yeah, and Darren.
Nathan?
Okay,
Nathan?
Ruby, I'm going to go to Wendy first and then yourself.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Jen. So just to be clear on this, I don't know if we need a motion or anything, but these 4 counselors will come back to full council with a mapped out political strategy that we can consider, correct?
That's what I'm hearing as well.
Okay, thanks.
And yeah, I think we do need a motion. So before we go to the motion, I'm going to go to Ruby. Ruby?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could have it clearly mapped out. I guess it would happen in a motion, what we're going to do with including the timing and that we would come as a group come back with the options for consideration for the elected council.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what I'm hearing. After this discussion, I'm hearing that the Gowanio Board of Directors and the Six Nations Elective Council approve a working group comprised up of Gowanio and Councillors Audrey Paulus Bombury, Councillors Hazel Johnson, Councillor Melba Thomas, and Councillor Sherry Lynn Hill Pierce. Develop a political strategy that will come up with a plan to finance the construction of the new school
Within 2 weeks.
within 2 weeks, and come up with that strategy and present it back to full council at the next general finance meeting.
Yes, and who, I guess that the board will take the lead on the meetings. Is it okay that if that happens, counselors? I know you're very busy.
I'm
Could
getting thumbs
we-
up on that one, Ruby.
Pardon?
Yep, I got thumbs up on that.
Okay, because we can arrange the meetings, the number of meetings we're gonna need to finish up this so that we're ready and to go on the next finance meeting for council.
Perfect. Wendy?
In the motion, Nathan, can you say to come back to full council with a plan and options for consideration?
Perfect. So just for you, Beck, that is an amendment there to come back with a plan and options for consideration.
Got it.
Got it. Okay, can I get a mover for that motion?
I'll move. It's Melba.
Moved by Melba, seconder? Seconded by Audrey. Any further discussion required on that motion? Hearing and seeing none, going to the vote. All in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion has passed.
Do
Okay,
you
Ruth?
have to have a second reading?
Yeah, I was just going to second reading.
Oh,
Um,
okay, I'm sorry.
Motion to waive second reading.
Melba.
Moved by Melba, seconder Audrey. All in favor? Any opposed?
Favor.
Hearing and seeing none, motion has passed. So Ruby, trust that you'll be in touch with the counselors on those first meeting dates, and we look forward to
Yes.
seeing the presentation in our next general council.
And thank you so much, council, for hearing us and be willing to get right on. And I so appreciate that on behalf of all of those concerned, you know, especially all those little folks that are walking around that parking lot, you know, and so on. So we thank you so much. Bye for now.
And
Thanks,
I want
Ruby.
to say, Nyamagoa as well to all of you. And I can hardly wait for 2 weeks to go by, see where we're at. Nyama, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, council, we're moving on. We're on agenda item number 4. We look to adopt the general council minutes from March 1st. Moved by Sherry Lynn.
Second, Melba.
Seconded by Melba. Any questions, amendments, concerns with minutes from March 1st? Seeing no discussion, moving to the vote, all in favor? Any opposed?
Beaver.
Seeing and hearing none, motion has passed. Agenda item number 5, the Building and Infrastructure Committee recommendations, and I'll pass this over to you, Audrey. Audrey, you're on mute.
Well, that's a good way to start off the week. I move that the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council approves the following. Whereas the Six Nations Public Works Department is working to provide additional tree and brush cutting services to meet community health and safety needs, whereas a funding opportunity has been identified that would allow the pilot of a tree and brush cutting service under the Six Nations Roads Department for the 2021 calendar year. Therefore, that the Building and Infrastructure Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council to approve Six Nations Public Works to enter into a contract with Hydro One for $136,752 for brush clearing and hydro line clearing. Further, that Darren Jameson, Senior Administration Officer, be authorized to sign the agreement. I so move.
Okay, seconder still good. I actually don't see Michelle, so we'll need a seconder for this.
I'll second that with a question.
Okay, so seconded by Carrie, and I'll go to Carrie for his first question.
Yeah, this group that is going to be cutting the trees, do they stay on road allowance or can they go on private property? That was one question I had.
Okay, question is, can they go on private property? I'm assuming, Mike, you would have the details around that.
Yeah, so what the money's going to do is allow us to hire some employees to do this work. We're going to be focusing on road allowance, but looking to develop parameters around accessing on private property and how that would work with, I guess, priority of requests and eligibility. So something we'll work towards once we sequence through the project and what the contract speaks to as far as road allowance work. We'll move on then to prioritize road work. And then if there's any availability after that, we'll start to look into developing policies and procedures on accessing private property.
Okay, thanks for that, Mike. You see Wendy.
So that was my question around capacity, because we've been hearing quite consistently how exhausted all of our staff are with the current work that they have. And given that we're still in black in the community and under COVID and just what this community is experiencing, where do we sit with hiring staff on? Where will they be housed? How will this be mapped out? I don't need the particulars, but just that it's been done. And I'm assuming that any staff that's hired, it's probably contract, and that the number of staff and salaries and wages will be less than the profit that's being produced here.
Very good questions. Wendy, I'm gonna turn it back over to Mike.
Yeah, those are great questions. Thank you for that. So we have expanded the administration department over at Public Works to really work on expanding this out. So we have developed administrative capacity, and we will be working with Grand River Employment and Training to procure the employees that we need, and they'll be housed over at Public Works, and that's where the equipment will be as well.
Okay, supplement from Wendy.
So do we have all the equipment for this already, or do we have to purchase any new equipment? Because I know Guyana Say does this as well, right?
Okay, Mike.
Yep. So within the budget, we do have items in there to rent and or buy these equipment, and we're able to do that with the contract value or the contract amount that we're getting from Hydro, plus hire the 2 contract employees.
Okay. Any further discussions?
Nathan, it's
Questions?
Hazel.
Okay, go ahead, Hazel.
Nathan, Hazel.
Yep, go ahead, Hazel.
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to ask you. Okay, Mike, I wanted to ask you about, as we discussed in BNI, like, are there new hydro poles going to be installed? Because the location that we spoke about, like all the trees are already marked with an X to come down. And right now there's no hydro poles there. So does that mean if they have to come down, that new poles are going to be installed in a location where there has never been a pole? That's my question.
Okay, turn it over to you, Mike.
So it's a twofold process, right? So what we're going to have to do is get approval for Hydro One to do the work, and what they usually do is draw up a little map to show us the new services, and the new services are usually driven by requests from community members to connect homes or businesses. So at that point in time, we'd be looked to work with Hydro as far as cutting goes. I'm not entirely sure if that's part of this agreement. I don't think that like the roadside piece is part of this agreement. I think it's predetermined just based on where they're at here and what the contract says. So the any work like that would have to go through our office anyway. And I'm sure if there's any big projects that council would be made aware, and we do have a good liaison with Hydro One. The Aboriginal the liaison is quite good at reaching out to us, and when I say us, I mean myself, Darren, and or the chief. So they do let us know when there's a lot of cutting or major projects going on.
Okay, thanks for that, Mike. Okay, there is a motion still on the floor. Is there any more discussion, questions?
It's Melba.
Go ahead,
Yes,
Melba.
just further to Carrie's concern about private property. Just recently, there has been a couple of people who had very difficult time. There was a tree that needed to be taken down. It was a huge tree, huge. So, of course, it would certainly cost a lot of money, of which it did, $500 in order to cut the tree and actually take the parts of the tree away. So hopefully in the future, as Mike had said, that they're going to look into that with what's available for private property, because as we know, a lot of the households don't have the tools and the finances to actually do the work themselves. So thank you very much for going forward with the private property. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that, Melba. Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, I'm going to move to the vote. All in favor? Is there any opposed? Hearing no opposition, this motion has passed. Mike, I'm assuming you need second reading?
Yes, please and thank you.
Okay. Okay, I see Audrey, move to waive second reading. Is there a seconder?
Yep, right here.
Carrie seconder, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing and hearing none, motion to waive second reading passed. And we're going on to agenda item number 6, landfill closure and the consultant. Motion is there. We don't have a mover and seconder, but looking for some quick context piece. Mike, can you give us just a quick introduction to this in a context?
So what we're really looking for is clarification in regards to, so the amount of this change order is just under 75K, but the total amount of the project with this change order tacked on is about $500,000 as far as the contract goes. So one of the items that we wanted clarification on, and when I say we, I mean, you know, administration. So myself, NSSC and Darren, we're looking for, I guess, guidance on did the overall, when we move the approval limits, are we looking at it from a contract value perspective, or are we just going to look at it from an actual charge perspective? Meaning, you know, could this have been approved under NSSC and Darren's approval limit, or are these to come back to council because the total contract amount is beyond that approval limit?
Okay, good questions, Mike. And I see some hands going up, so I'm going to go to Wendy.
So is that what the motion is supposed to be, asking for clarification? Because the motion is to approve this budget. And I saw the item that was included in the package, but because it's sideways, I can't read it. And I don't know what the change order is actually for in the amount. So I don't know what, what the 75,000 is for. And I guess my interpretation of approvals is because of the amount, it goes with the overall amount. You don't split pieces and say because it's this much, then it changes the approval process. It goes with the whole amount. That's normally how it works. But yeah, I don't know what the 75,000 is for actually in the change order. That's what I was expecting to hear.
Okay, thanks for that, Wendy. So yeah, it looks like back to your question, and I agree too. It goes back to the total amount. So the $500,000 change order would require that shift to come here. And I think I've heard that before, but not 100% certain. But in terms of the question that Wendy had, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mike.
Okay, thanks so much for that clarification. So just in regards to the change order, so the majority of the change order has to do with landfill site monitoring. So now that we've closed the landfill site and built the transfer station, what part of what we've included in the contract now is for the consultant to go ahead and do a 3-year monitoring of the closed site. And after that 3 years, so into 2023, what they'll be doing is coming up with a report of recommendations for ongoing monitoring. And then from there, what we'll be doing is taking that and liaising with Indigenous Services Canada for funding to complete that recommended monitoring ongoingly for the closed cells of the landfill sites.
Nate?
Okay,
Nathan,
thanks.
can I do a substitute?
I'm going to go to Wendy and then Carrie. Go ahead, Wendy.
So I thought monitoring was part of the original contract.
So the original contract was for the actual design, contract, admin, and construction review. So we are adding this piece on, and it is funded 100% by Indigenous Services Canada.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Carrie?
Yeah, on this approval part, like the original contract was approved and the change order of 75,000. Like why should it have to come back to council if we already approved the original contract, which was 460 or something, and 75 is the change order that is well within SAO and Mike's approval. So why can't they just approve it? That's what I'm wondering. Instead of, because the original part was already approved.
Yeah, and I think that's because it goes back to the total amount, not the change order amount. I see you, Helen. So yeah, that's the clarification he sought at the beginning. So it goes back to the total amount, which is which put us over $500,000. Helen?
Yeah, I'm along the lines of Carrie, I think. I don't even know why it's coming back here. If ISK is gonna pay 100% of this, and it might be part of the original agreement, I don't know why it's here. I would think Mike and them would just do it. What are we approving? That they can do it? I mean, the money's already there. I don't know.
Okay, thanks for that. And I'll go back to Wendy.
I guess overall, I mean, if it's going to be a debate between this, I mean, we do have a director of finance who is a CA, and we do have our SAO. I mean, I would think we have policies around this. So what do the policies say? I mean, generally, you know, acceptable accounting procedures would be, because it's a total amount. Otherwise, it's called splitting orders. So, and that's not acceptable. So it would follow that process and that chain. But I'll go back to our staff, who are the experts on the policy and what we can and can't do.
Okay, I see Anna Cecilia with your hand up.
Thank you, Nathan. So there were a couple of points of view. One of them, was the fact that the change order was under, our purview. Another point was the fact of when council approve a certain amount, the lower level cannot modify that amount. So if, let's say, council approve a purchase of 600,000, a lower level cannot go and say, well, it's not going to be 600, now it's going to be 650. And the point also is very valid when, in general, in the purchases, when we split to change who approves the purchase, it's not right. It has to be done on the whole amount. So based on that, I will suggest that anything that, first of all, the council has approved has to go back to council to be modified. Just, to respect the levels, the consistency. And the second thing is, if the amount changes the limit, if partial approvals change the limit of approval from the SAO and the SFO, it should go to council. So it's approved on the total of the amount of the purchase.
Thanks for that, Anna Cecilia. And that's there's some good clarity around that too. And yeah, I think we see it in the management letter later on in the audit as well.
Nate?
Yep, go ahead, Carrie.
So if there was a change order of $50, would it'll still have to come back tonight to be approved, because it's changing the total, overall total? That's what I'm hearing.
Yep, that's what I heard too.
That sounds kind of foolish, but if that's policy, I guess.
It's the accounting piece. And I think also we can probably have this discussion as well once we get into the management letter, the audit. There's some guidance in there as well.
Okay.
Okay, council, good discussion, good clarity. I'm not seeing any further hands being raised. So going back to the motion, it's not moved or seconded yet. So what I'll do is I'll read it. That the Six Nations elected council approved change order number 2 in the amount of $73,502 for additional costs attributed to 3 years monitoring of the closed Six Nations landfill site for Six Nations transfer station and landfill closure design project, which increases Dillon's Consulting Limited contract from $460,510.50 to $534,012.50. Sources of the funds identified as Indigenous Services Canada. Can I get a mover?
I'll move.
Moved by Carrie, seconder. Helen? No further questions. All in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion has passed. Motion to waive second reading.
Yeah, I'll move.
Moved by Carrie, seconder. I see Helen's hand. Motion to waive second reading. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion has passed. Okay, council. That brings us to the end of the open agenda. I'd like to thank community members for joining us that tuned in, and looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Sherry Lynn.
I'll move. It's Hazel.
Seconded by Hazel. All in favor? Any opposed?
Favor.
Hearing and seeing none, motion has passed. Thank you, community, and thanks, council.